Discussion of alternate court facilities due to COVID-19.
Okay. Over the last month or so, I've had multiple meetings with the judges in our district, talking about where we're at with regard to opening back up. We're getting to that point where next Monday we start to open up a little bit more. Non-jury trials could start on the 13th. There's some other limited appearances that will start up on that date also with regard to felony offenses. So the judges are concerned, and I know one is on with us on conference call right now, is Judge Hefner. They're concerned about holding everything out at the facility based on the size. So there's obviously 4 courtrooms over there. 2 are bigger than the other 2. The district court judges typically get stuck in one of the smaller courtrooms, which is not conducive to distancing and holding court in there right now. So our discussions have centered on alternate sites to hold court. Last week we met, and the sheriff and the court and I met with Ryan Waller, the city manager, to talk about using the rec center across from the court facility as a potential site to do some things. The space is probably big enough, but there's some limitations there. We're trying to use it. One, it's going to cost us $30 an hour to hold it. There's going to be issues with setting up and tearing down. There's also going to be issues with how often we can use it, because I think our understanding is they are doing programming out there right now. So it wouldn't be as probably often as the court would like to use it, that it would be available. Following that, I met with Chief Judge Hubbard and Judge Hefner here. We walked through the auditorium. Kirk Baker joined in that meeting too, to talk about what could potentially be done with the auditorium. Kirk has set it up. I don't know if anybody's walked through the auditorium recently, and shown how it could be set up to do non-jury matters. I think it works for that. We've also had discussions about setting it up to potentially do jury trials here. Jury trials will start up on September 14th is the first date that we can have them. So we're going to need a site to do that. The courtrooms out at the court facility will hold 40 people for jurors. If you, on a normal time, if you try to space people out, there's not near enough to hold a jury trial there. At least to get through the jury selection portion of it. Alex and I walked through the auditorium and looked at all the chairs there. Spacing out, we could probably fit 48 people in the auditorium to do a jury trial, to at least get through selection, and then we can have them all seated there and do the trial there also. We have a lot of trials that are backed up right now. We have a lot of civil trials that are backed up right now. All those are going to come online here all at once. Where are we going to do it? We can't do it at the court facility. We all know that. So this would be a viable option. Obviously, we own it, so we don't have to pay ourselves rent for it, which I think is another big thing. So I think it could work toward the end of the budget year, knowing that this was probably going to come into play at some point in time. I purchased extra equipment off of last year's budget to do these things. I purchased portable sound system, bought a TV, card for it, extra whiteboard, other things. I think we're set that we could roll into a site other than at the court facility and do trials, do other sorts of court.
Ryan didn't mention council chambers.
He did not bring that up.
Must-
Nor did we ask about it either,
Yeah.
so that's,
Only other place I could really
Yeah.
think.
so obviously that would entail opening up the auditorium, at least to the public. I think it would work. There's those two bathrooms off to the north of the auditorium. We don't have to let people back into the main part of the building to use the restrooms or anything. We could just keep them contained in there.
Do we know if nutrition is going to start meals anytime soon?
Well, even the meal preparation, they're still preparing meals there. I mean, banging around pots and pans, is that gonna, I mean, I know even when they were holding court here in the boardroom, if there was noise from the kitchen, it was when the band was playing or anything.
Well, it was the band playing that was the issue. We've talked about that, and I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Okay.
It's not to try to displace them at all.
Right.
So that's just a part of having it in a non-court facility. And I think everybody recognizes that, would be fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
How about
pull the curtains?
We could pull the curtain too.
Okay.
And part of what, the way Kirk set it up the other day was the black boards that you use for elections or used to use for elections, string those along the past half court, like between the half court and the top of the key on the north side of the basketball court as it goes there. Spread those along there. It offers another buffer or shield between the kitchen and what court would do.
I know you wanted to use the auditorium for election during the month of October, right? Would that be a scheduling conflict?
Well, at this point, we don't really know how elections are gonna go, if we're gonna end up doing them like we did for the primary. But yeah, that was a thought, to use just the south part of the auditorium. But we can still do the drive-up parking like we did before too. That worked well, but I think the majority will do the mail again.
Okay.
So I might,
We did talk about the fact that on election day you need the auditorium and we would have to clear it out that day.
yeah.
I think everybody understands there's going to be give and take, and if there are days where you need it or whomever needs it, then we would concede that point. We have to reschedule or whatever.
How many days are we talking?
Well, district court is on Mondays for criminal, Tuesdays for civil, and then jury trials for felony cases start on Wednesdays and can go a couple days there.
Okay.
They'll also mix in their non-jury trials in there also.
Okay, and that's what we would be talking about.
We would talk about the whole thing,
Oh, everything.
everything.
Okay.
See, that's why the problem with using the rec center is potentially down the road, we're looking at 5 days a week.
And
So
then
you're looking at-
programs. Okay.
Probably $1,500 a week, give or take.
Right.
If you were using it 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day for 5 days. So
Okay.
this is from a cost standpoint, I see a better.
Well, I'm also thinking of parking here could be an issue. I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah, there's good about both and bad about both, so yeah, okay.
I assume all other options have been pretty explored at this point. I mean, it's really that we're either going to rent space, auditorium, theoretically the West Annex. I mean, but other than that, I don't know what else. I mean, the point is, I don't think there's any great solutions. We sort of need to pick one that's workable.
Yeah, Could it be a combination of the two?
It could be.
Okay. How would that work for security, Sheriff?
So if it's here, we'll be spread thin, but my concern here is the security wise. You're going to have to make sure those double doors are locked there coming off the main hallway. They stay locked, plus the doors going back into the auditor's side there on the back side. Those will have to stay locked.
Would they use just the south auditorium door to enter and exit?
Yes.
That would be our plan.
And you only have, what, 2 handicap spots here for parking?
Yes. On the south side.
Parking's going to be your biggest issue.
Yeah, it's gonna be huge.
Especially when, if the college gears up again too, that's going to be more of a challenge. But, you know, Doug and I work good together, we'll make it work. We're working with the courts. Be nice if we had the rec center right across the street 5 days a week, but we don't. That makes it more convenient for everybody, even the judges, so.
We've done it here before. You know, that year we were gone, we had several jury trials here in this room. So we know we can do it. We've done it. I know it's not convenient. I know it puts a strain on parking and all that kind of stuff. The good thing about here is the judges know that in the past they've hooked into their network here. So that was a concern of theirs if they were going to go forward with the rec center. Is
Non-secure network.
yeah, that was something they were going to have to look at a little further.
So that would mean equipping that? Could you do it without it? I wouldn't think you could. How would that work?
I would think they want it because there's no paper files anymore, so everything's
So they'd
all.
have to.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Sure will be nice when the courthouse is done.
Well, you're right. Hadn't thought of that.
And I would suggest that anything you can move out of the auditorium and put somewhere else, do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you can, out of sight, out of mind, maybe get some, stuff to stick up around where the maintenance has all their supplies, and cleaning, all that, out of sight, out of mind.
My election boxes are the biggest thing that are back there, which we usually find space on that back wall when there's something going on, but
Kirk and I have talked about potentially moving those around so that if we had to configure it for a jury trial.
not necessarily. It helps, but
I wonder maybe the county look into a big storage unit and store those in the storage unit until you need them. So if you got a jury trial, you're gonna have to use seats in the auditorium and those.
Right. Right. We know we're gonna have to move them around.
Well, if they're used infrequently, I mean, I think the point is perhaps it'd be better if they went to the West Annex or a storage facility or somewhere else. If you're going to use them twice a year or whatever, then they don't really need to be there if we need to have the space. It's inconvenient, but it's doable. Okay.
Could we rent a pod or something?
How many you got?
A lot.
36.
Yeah. Which precinct?
And I would just need them here the month before, because that's when we start preparing them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hear any better alternatives. So what do the courts think of the plan? I assume you've talked with them some, and they're on the.
Judge Hefner, do you want to talk about it?
I'm here to listen and to answer any questions. I think Doug has summarized our situation pretty well. I apologize apologize, I could not hear all of the conversation that was going on. The audio's a little bit muffled, but the auditorium, we've used it before. It's got good space, particularly when we begin jury trials in September. We need that much space. I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to hear the news reports about the task force's recommendations or requirements for when we do start jury trials. Those recommendations or protocols were published yesterday, and they will require social distancing, which for jury trials will be interesting, because the concept of jury trials is not to socially distance, but to cram 12 people in a small room and force them to come up with a verdict of some sort. So, we need space. We think the auditorium would work. We certainly will cooperate with anybody else that needs to use the space. In terms of election day, that's pretty far out. We can actually, that would be civil court service. We'll schedule ourselves out of it that day. That will not be a problem, knowing this far in advance that that's what you want to do. The fact that they're cooking meals in there, that's all right. We're aware of that use. So if you have any questions of me as to what our needs are, but Doug's, the problem with the rec center, I mean, it's nice space, but scheduling is going to be problematic there. It's just, I just don't see that as being a real good fit because of scheduling. I know that would be more convenient for Sheriff Boss in terms of security right across the street. I understand that. But we'll work with the sheriff and his personnel to come up with a security plan for our use of that space.
A big issue for us, Judge, is parking. I don't know if City of Indianola would be apt to closing a street or two for parking. I don't know. How flexible is scheduling when it comes to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of remains to be seen, honestly, because even though we are opening up on July 13 next Monday, we are opening up for non-jury trials and other non-jury hearings that must be in person. There are some hearings that have to, for one reason or another, be conducted in person. They cannot be conducted remotely. So in terms of scheduling, we plan, I know as a group, all of the district court judges plan to continue to use remote scheduling to the extent we can. And on Tuesdays, for example, Tuesday being civil court service, we can continue to conduct Tuesday civil court service almost exclusively remotely. There will be occasion when we have to be down there, and then there will not be a lot of people in there. That will be for an isolated hearing. For example, I know that we have a criminal sentencing next Monday. That has to be in person. But even that will not generate a lot of traffic. When the traffic will be generated is when we start jury trials in September. So up until then, the flow of traffic into that room will not be that great. But beginning in September, it will. So I know that's an unanswer to a pretty good question, but that's the best I can do.
Okay.
First time for going through this for all of us.
Yes.
Doug, do you know if Simpson's starting back up in August?
I don't know, but I'll find out.
Because let's say they don't come back to school right away. Is there a potential that we could use that lot behind the science building?
That would be
No.
very good.
Okay.
That'd help.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, parking at the old courthouse, this is not that much different from that,
True.
really. And about the only request I would have is for a parking space for my court reporter, because every time we go down there, she's lugging in probably 50, 60 pounds of equipment. So it'd be nice to have one spot for her. I'm still capable of walking. I'm not mobility impaired, so I know where to find parking around the square. And I know where to pay my parking tickets when I park in the wrong spot, so.
Honestly, Your Honor, I think there's a Indianola moratorium on parking enforcement for a while, so you should be good to go in any event.
I think I'm being baited.
Maybe a little. All right, I appreciate your time. I don't have any other questions. Do my colleagues have anything additional? Thank you for the summary. This is a discussion only at this point, but it seems to me like it certainly is the best of the bunch of the solutions as presented. So,
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
If I may ask, when will you be able to put this on your agenda? Not to be pushy.
Sure. We can either have a special meeting, or I don't know when our next one is. I mean, we just had one today, so we'll.
21st.
You know, honestly, I think we'll do a special meeting before the 21st, maybe next week sometime. We'll have a few items to address, and we'll add this to the list, and we'll get it voted on.
Can we have a special arrangement? Because court does have something in person on the 13th, I know right now,
Okay.
that we need to have a spot for.
We just have to provide notice to the public with 24 hours. So theoretically, if we wanted to do a meeting tomorrow afternoon, we could do a 5-minute Zoom meeting if you'd like to, and we can get it addressed and we can get it noticed out to the public and on the agenda. I'm fine with that.
That'd be great.
Let's see if we can shoot for a meeting this week.
Okay.
That would be appreciated.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay.
Okay, the lot you're talking about is to the west of the science.
Yes, so in between,
It's only lot, yeah.
yeah, in between the football field.
Yeah, and the science.
East
Yeah.
of,
You know, there's some administrative parking, I think, in there too.
Is it?
Yeah, we'll find out.
Okay.
Then are you, everyone's calendar okay for tomorrow after? I mean, I'm thinking it's gonna take 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, but tomorrow afternoon, 1, 2 o'clock, does that work?
I'll make myself available.
Okay. We'll just do a Zoom meeting if you don't, I forgot one thing, so, okay. Any motions to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Tracy?
Sure.
Aye.
McIntyre.
Aye.
DeCook.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, and be interesting to see when Simpson does come back.
Mm-hmm.